Coach Corey Wayne, and this is my video coaching newsletter. And the topic of this newsletter is going to be making excuses versus taking action. Well, I've got a short email here from a viewer that I'm going to go through in a minute, and he brings up some good points. And I want you, when you're watching this video, to listen to see if you can pick out what his model of the world is. In other words, what his worldview is. And you've probably heard me talk about when it comes to setting goals or going after the things you want in life, usually what we have is that holds us back from actually going for the things we want is two primary fears. And the first fear is fear that we're not enough. In other words, we don't think that we have what it takes, or we don't have the resources to accomplish our goals, or fear that we won't be accepted and loved by our friends, family, or peer group. And it's interesting, because as a life coach, I talk to a lot of people about this issue. And one of the things that I do when I'm doing phone or Skype sessions with people, and it doesn't matter what country they're from, what I listen for is their self-talk. In other words, just them talking to me, like when I ask them a specific question about their goals or their dreams or what they want to accomplish, or like especially like when I'm trying to figure out or help people figure out what their purpose or their mission is in life. And the average person, deep down, they have something they really want to do, but they're afraid to tell me because they're afraid I'm going to laugh at, or I'm going to say, well, that's a ridiculous idea. And so that's typically because they have so many fears and negative associations with what it is, whether it's talking to a woman or going for the career that they really want, or starting the business they've always wanted to, or it's just starting an exercise program because they want to get in shape, or maybe they need to lose 50 pounds. It's what usually comes out when I start asking questions to elicit what their real true desires are. Is what usually comes out first is all of their excuses and all of their reasons why it can't work for them. And this is just the bullshit story that they tell themselves to soften the blow of having to deal with potential rejection, whether it's rejection from a woman or rejection from a future or a potential employer, or rejection or failure, just meaning not, in other words, they don't put themselves out there because the fear of doing something is actually more real and more painful to them than actually the pleasure, the potential pleasure, I should say, of actually doing or achieving what it is that they want to accomplish in life. And so if you're watching this video, we all have fears that we are dealing with that you have to learn to get past, to overcome them. And when I read emails like this, it's important to listen to the self-talk of the other person, because I'm not just talking to the guy who wrote me the email. I'm talking to everybody that is listening to this on the other end, because you might have similar fears, or you might have the exact same kinds of fears that are in your own self-talk. And the key is to listen for those things. And so when you think about doing something, and you start listening to the thoughts that start running through your mind, or all those excuses that you normally start giving yourself as to why you can't do it or why you can't take action. I don't have enough money. I don't have enough skills. I don't have enough resources, whatever it happens to be. You can catch yourself and realize what you are consciously and subconsciously doing to sabotage your own success. This was a big thing for me when I was in my early 20s. What I realized when I was in college, and I had one of the classes that just totally kicked my ass, was calculus. And it didn't matter if I got every single class out of the way and passed it. If I didn't pass calculus, I wasn't going to get that degree. And it didn't matter all those hundreds and hundreds and thousands of hours over the years that I spent studying, going to class, driving, and all those things. Didn't matter if I didn't pass calculus, I wasn't going to get my degree. And then for me, what was so real is the fear of wondering, gee, well, was my mom really right? Was I really stupid and never going to amount to anything? And so for me, I was more afraid of really trying to apply myself in calculus and then realize that I wasn't smart enough to pass it. And so I was always coming up with excuses. Oh, hey, Seinfeld's on, or hey, Friends is on, or hey, my buddies want to go out and have some beers. I'll do my homework tomorrow. And so I always was finding excuses to put off doing the homework that I needed to do, because I was really terrified of finding out if I was potentially just simply not smart enough to pass it. And if that was the case, to me, what happens if I pass all my classes but I can't pass calculus? I mean, that's a pretty painful thought of not being able to get my degree because of one simple class. And so what I did is just like what Tony Robbins says, people will do more to avoid pain than they will do to gain pleasure. And so for me, the pain of potential failure was a lot scarier and more powerful and more emotionally compelling to me than the potential pleasure of applying myself and succeeding, getting my college degree, later on getting my contractor's license, my real estate broker's license, and getting into the construction industry, and eventually building my own companies, which obviously, if you know my story, you know I succeeded at it. But what I learned from Tony was what I was actually doing, my own personal self-talk, and how I was, without realizing how I was sabotaging my success and really not taking any action at all. And that's what a lot of people do. They get kind of stuck in the paralysis of analysis, and they never get off the start line. So let me read a quote that I wrote to go along with this. It says, people who seem to be standing still in life and not progressing towards realizing their grandest goals and dreams are prevented from reaching their full potential due to the paralysis of analysis or their fear of things not working out, fear of rejection, fear they don't have enough education, fear they don't have the skills, fear they don't have the resources, or fear that they simply don't have what it takes to succeed. Before beginning, you must decide, this is really important, you must decide what you want and why you want it. In other words, you've got to have an emotionally compelling reason to go for it. The how you are going to do it is not important. The how only becomes clearer when you actually start taking action. Imperfect action is better than no action at all. You learn from everything you do, your successes and your failures. Because for me as an entrepreneur, when you have a great idea to do something, you think, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and hey, in 6 months I'll be a millionaire. And you think like your next idea, your next attempt at something is what's really going to put you over the edge. And as an entrepreneur, you have to be very optimistic and you have to be very comfortable with failure because you're going to fail a lot. And unfortunately, as the way being an entrepreneur is most of your ideas just simply aren't going to work. However, the benefit to trying things even when they don't work and when you fail is that you learn something. You learn what didn't work. And sometimes some things work kind of a little bit, but not really. And it was interesting, like when you look at Thomas Edison when he was trying to figure out the right type of filament to make the light bulb work, and he was like 7,000, 8,000 different things, materials that he tried, and he failed. Somebody was talking to him, was like, God, that's a lot of failure. He says, no. He says, I've simply discovered 8,564 things that won't work. And so as an eternal optimist, that's the way he looked at it. He looked at it, in essence, he had to get through the no's or the failures in order to get to find the right material that would actually work to make the light bulb work. And he didn't give up, and eventually he figured it out. And there's an old saying, I can't think of who the quote was. It says, the difference between winning and losing is most often not quitting. And so that's why it's so important. I make a big deal. I say you got to choose something to go after in life that's really emotionally compelling to you. And it has to be your reasons. Your friends, your family, your peer group, they're not going to really understand what your motivation is going to be. You have to determine what is important to you. And deep down, you're the one who knows why you're doing things, whether you want to become more successful with women, or you want to start a business, or you want to get that job that you've always wanted, or maybe you got to go back to school in order to get a degree in order to ultimately do it. The idea is that these are your reasons, and the average person is not going to understand why you're doing it. And not only do you have to deal with your own failure when you're trying to do things, but you also have to deal with all of the limiting beliefs of the other weak people around you who don't have the guts to go for what they want, and they're putting you down. They're saying, oh, that's stupid, you're an idiot, that'll never work out for you. So let's go through his email. He says, Coach, like a few other guys who have written in, I am a young man who lives with his parents. I don't make enough to move out. I have, and this is what he says, I have no skill set or education to get a higher paying job. And I'm about as down and out as I could get. Did you hear that self-talk? He says, I have no skill set or education to get a higher paying job. And I'm about as down and out as I could get. Well, when I got my first job in the construction industry, I started as an unpaid intern. And I worked for about a month and a half, I think it was, and then Hurricane Andrew hit, and we just got inundated with work. And this was in the early 90s when we were in the construction industry in South Florida was in the middle of a recession. And so there weren't a lot of jobs out there, but I was willing to work for free just to get experience, because if you work and an opportunity comes along and you prove yourself to them, you're willing to work for free, that you really want to be there, then when some work comes in, and because you've been willing to work for next to nothing, in essence, to get the experience, you're the guy that they're going to hire when they get work and after you've proved yourself. So it's a good way to go about it. But you got to change your story and the way you look at things, because this is typically what you say to bullshit yourself into not doing anything and not taking any action at all. Oh, I don't have the education. I don't have the money. I don't come from a good enough family. I don't have the skills, just like he said here. That's typically what people say, and they don't do anything. They just sit there, and 5 years goes by, 10 years goes by, 20 years go by, and they work one bullshit job after another because they tell themselves, I don't have this, I don't have that, so therefore I can't do it. And a strategic planner once taught me this, and it's so true. He says there's no such thing as a bad idea, only bad plans. And the way you're obviously going about it is you got a shitty plan. And so you got to look at it in a different way. You got to ask yourself, what way could this possibly work? An unpaid internship is that's how I started out, because when you work for a company for a year or two, you start out as an unpaid intern. That's how you get your experience. He says, I feel really impotent in my ability to create the future I want. I want great things out of life. He says writer, artist, musician, actor, but at the same time, I don't feel talented enough to become these things. Well, of course you're not talented enough yet. Just like Aristotle said thousands of years ago, excellence is not a singular act. It is a habit. You are what you do repeatedly. When you look at a guy like LeBron James, who's the best basketball player in the world, he's been playing since he was a little kid. Repetition's the mother of skill. When you do something over and over and over again, that's how you become good at it. If you want to be a writer or an artist, or a musician or an actor, you got to practice at your craft. You look at someone, like I remember when Kevin Spacey won his first Academy Award. I remember because he was much older in life. I think he was in his 30s, early 40s when he won his first award. And I remember him holding it up and he said, Mom, all those acting classes you took me to when I was a teenager, 15, 16 years old, and he held it up and he said, here's the pudding. I thought that was pretty fucking cool moment. But the average person, they don't see that. They don't see the thousands of hours and the years that he went through perfecting his craft to eventually become good enough as an actor to eventually get that kind of a role and get himself an Academy Award. He says, but at the same time, I don't feel talented enough to become these things. I've spent a lot of time in the self-help circuit, and I just seem to be paralyzed by wanting to examine every tedious detail instead of taking action. I feel like you're a man who knows what he's talking about and how to accomplish desired results. What do I do? Just like the quote I shared, imperfect action is better than no action at all. If you have a burning desire, in other words, on a scale of 1 to 10, if becoming a successful writer, artist, musician, or an actor is a 10 to you, I mean, you can't think of anything more exciting than that. Take acting classes. Start learning from other people that are successful actors. Model success of other people that are already succeeding at the highest level that you want to succeed at. It may take you 20 years to get to where you consider to be like the ultimate success, winning the Academy Award, having a gold record, writing a screenplay for a movie that gets picked up. Everybody's got to start somewhere. And you look at all the most famous actors and actresses out there, almost all of them at some point waited tables or tended bar when they were young and going to acting classes and trying to become better and going to casting call after casting call after casting call. Like I just retweeted something from The Rock the other day. When he was back in 95, I think it was, he had like $75 in his pocket before he started wrestling for, I think it was like $40 a night. And you look at him today, he's a multi-millionaire. He's flying over the world in a private jet, and he's very successful in his movies. He's crushing it. So if you'd like to get my help personally through a phone coaching session or a Skype coaching session, go to my website, click the products tab, and follow the instructions for booking a paid phone session. I'll talk to you soon.